Welcome everybody back to the Basement Binge. And this week, we watched Ender's Game. And my name is Harrison.
My name is Kelton.
And I am Cade.
And this week's going to be a little different. We're in a real hurry because Cade's got to get out of here. He's got an appointment he's got to go to. And Kelton came for like the last 15 minutes of the movie because his car broke down. So it's just going to be a little different. We're going to be a little quick with it. So we'll just immediately start with our spoiler wall, which is 1 minute of spoiler-free thoughts about the film. And then at the end of that minute, if we would recommend it. So, Cade, you got that timer for us?
I do have it.
Okay. Kelton, do you want to do a spoiler wall?
I'll say what I thought. Yeah, why not?
Okay.
Let's do this.
All right.
Okay.
I'll go first, since this is the movie I suggested. You got it?
Go for it.
All right. I love these books. I've read them a lot. I just barely recently reread the whole Ender/Speaker saga, and I forgot how much I really love the movie. If you've read the books, don't expect the movie to be like the book, but expect it to be faithful to it. It's a really, really good adaptation, actually. Like it knows what to follow and what to cut out and what to change in a way that works for the movie. It's much faster paced than the book, but still really enjoyable. As just a plain movie, if you haven't read the book, it's really great. It's fun to enjoy. It's fun to follow. The CGI is amazing. The music is amazing. The story is fun. I mean, it's just a good sci-fi movie. Just a good action blockbuster sci-fi movie. It's a ton of fun. And honestly, going into it, I was like, oh yeah, Ender's Game. Like last week was such a high point with Edge of Tomorrow. Like Ender's Game, how good can that be? Like as much as I love it. And then I was just like, yeah, all right, it will be good, but not great. And then I was pleasantly surprised by how good the movie was and if I enjoyed it. So would I recommend it? Yeah, I actually really would recommend it. It gets a lot of bad rap, but I think it deserves a watch.
All right. Okay, here's my spoiler wall. This movie. So, my perspective, I haven't read the books. I know the basic story or the gist of what happens and the basic subject and stuff. It's a very serious movie, but it's got so much. It has a lot of technical and strategy. It's a strategic movie that's got a bunch of kids in it, which is hard to catch on because how these kids so like such geniuses. But I understood what the movie was about, so that didn't bother me. It makes you kind of think, and you have to understand the backstory of the movie in order to enjoy it, I feel like. So would I suggest this to a selected few? But I say it was a good movie, though. But I would suggest this to only a few people who would really want to dive in and enjoy this sort of strategic movie.
Yeah, that's true. People who like this type of sci-fi movie.
All right, set that timer, dude. Okay, my 1 minute spoiler wall. So, like, of the 15 minutes I watched, like, I've read the first book, Ender's Game, and based on what I saw in the movie, it pretty much lived up to the book. And generally, you can never go wrong with that. I mean, I've read books and the movie is like completely trash and like almost ruins the entire book series for you because it's so bad. Freaking Lightning Thief, dude. I'm still butthurt about that. But like the point is, I think this did a good job based on like the little man I saw. So if you enjoyed the book, you're gonna enjoy the movie. I mean, I did. It was still like in the last 15 minutes there's some sweet CGI and like the awesome fight scenes and stuff. So yeah, if you like Ender's Game and you've enjoyed the books, go watch this. I mean, I've watched enough where I want to watch the whole rest of the movie now, just based off of like what I've seen, because it'd be cool to just kind of get the full story because I don't remember everything. But yeah, seems like a good movie.
Okay, so thanks everybody for listening to the spoil wall. If you haven't gone and seen the movie and you feel like you're in that type of sci-fi space battles type movie that's kind of heavy, go enjoy it, have fun with it, and then come back and listen to the rest of the show. Everybody else, we're just going to continue with our regular scheduled program, but it's going to be very rushed because Kate's got to get out of here. So
bear with us.
Yeah, this is going to be quick. Which we forgot to announce, so I guess I'll just edit it and put it in the announcements. In our preparation for what's coming after the MCU, if you guys could tweet at us at Binge Basement, tweet at us your top 10 favorite movies. It could just be like a screenshot of your letterbox. If you're lazy, just do your favorites. But come on, make a top 10 list and send it to us.
Send it to us.
Tweet at us. We would love that. At Binge Basement on Twitter, your top 10 in Letterboxd. We'd love that. Appreciate it. So.
All right, that brings us to our next segment, which is 2 cents. We have 2 minutes to talk about what we think about the movie. So I'll start. Just give me like 30 seconds, to be honest.
Okay. 30 seconds. You are on.
All right, the CGI was sick. That final battle scene, I didn't remember exactly like detail for detail, but it was a ton of fun to watch. Just all like I legit felt like it was really intense and really cool to watch. You could see like the desperation of the kids and stuff. Which the kids I don't like kid actors, so that's like a little hard for me to watch. But overall, the final battle was sweet. I totally enjoyed that. And I think they did a really good job of showing like the emotion that comes from battle and then like the manipulation that led Ender to like realize he just like committed genocide. So way cool.
All right. That was just 30 cents. that was your 3. I don't know what
what is that, a quarter cent?
Yeah.
It's a 1 cent. That's my half cent.
Yeah, half cent. There we go.
Okay, all right, let's do this. I'll go next. So this movie. So the plot is good. No, there's no sense of humor in this movie. I think this might be it's a few laughs throughout the movie that you can probably count on one hand, but it's a solid story that makes you want to think, makes you want to kind of pick the brain of Ender, who is the main protagonist in this movie, who is just a super genius kid, and he's just so smart. And if you do want to pick Ender's brain about like how he thinks and stuff, go read the book, because it really dives into like what he thinks and all this stratagem. Because there's a point where he's at battle school being trained to fight, and there's like maybe 3 scenes in the movie, but in the book it goes so much more into that. It's like he's there for a couple of years, correct?
Yeah.
And then he goes to command school, and he's there for a few years too. And so there's so much depth, and it builds and stuff. And so with this movie, they had a whole lot of curriculum, and had to kind of scrunch it down, and they did really well with it. Honestly, they created a story that they can nail to show in theaters, unlike other movies where they've tried to use books to have that as a curriculum, like Aragon and Percy Jackson Lightning Thief. It crashed and burned so hard. It was awful. Those are awful movies. Maybe we can do that for Binge the Cringe. Try to protect those or defend that. But this movie did well on its own. This movie had cinematography, and the soundtrack was really good. It was really good. Underrated, honestly. Like, I want to go listen to it on my own. It's really good. And so I enjoyed this all the way. And I want to watch it again because it's been kind of a long day and been running around a lot, so I was kind of fading at the very end. But I enjoyed this movie. It was good.
All right, throw in my 2 minutes. Okay, so first and foremost, this movie is an adaptation. It is not 100% like the book. If you want the story of the book, read the book. If you want a good movie version of it, watch the movie. Like, the time in battle school is way faster. It also, props to Gavin Hood, the director and writer of it, to know what to include from the book, what to cut out, like the things that happen with Peter and Valentine. I don't want to spoil the book for anybody, but like that would just make no sense. It would be really confusing in the movie, so they just cut it out. And there's things that are sped up that make sense in the movie, and I feel like when I think about movie adaptations, I think about this as like a really good adaptation of the book. Maybe not the greatest movie ever, but maybe one of the best adaptations, because it really understands the book, but it understands how to make it a movie and not a book movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I love it. The score is amazing. The visual effects are top notch. Like, honestly, way better than I remember them being. Like, I was really, really impressed. And one of the VFX studios went bankrupt while making this movie. So that's how good it is. Score, maybe I'm repeating myself. That was super good. But the acting from kids was actually pretty good. I really enjoyed it. I kind of reaction to it the first time watching it. In my head, when I read the books, I kind of imagine Ender and everyone kind of as like my age at whatever point I'm reading the book. So at this point, it's kind of like a young adult. And watching the movie, it's like hard to want a kid to act like a young adult, but this time I was like, remember, it's a kid. Like, and understanding that it was a kid going through it made the acting and the story that much better. So like you gotta, if you're like me, you gotta get your brain into the right mode, and it turns out being really, really good. There's a lot of, if you like the book, there's a lot of details that are just like thrown in there where they talk about the Ansible and other things, and like when they talk about the game, I'm like, I want Jane so badly, but they just like, if you know what it is, you know what it is. If it's not, just keep going. But yeah, it's a movie that like I enjoyed it. Yeah, I think I'm gonna be saying that a lot. And anyway,
It was great.
yeah. So move on to the next section super quick. Does it live up? So I'm the only one here who's seen this movie, and I wanted to watch it because I'd seen it. The reason why is just because I love the books, and like I said before, I feel like this is a really good adaptation of the book because it is different than the book in the right ways. Which makes it a good movie, and I wanted to see what they thought of it. So that's why I shared it. But Cade, what were your expectations for it, and did it live up to them?
So my expectations for this movie was I wanted to see. There was a point. So when he was at battle school, and he has his own command of his team, Team Dragon, and they were surprised like 3 a.m. to have a battle against 2 teams. And I remember I read comics of this. Illustrations of it, and I remember how that fight scene was like one of my favorites. It was just super cool. And so when it came up to that point in the movie, I had high expectations for that scene, because like it was gonna be dope, because they've been caught off guard, they were outnumbered, and he jumps out and he uses half of his squad as a shield and the other half to get across, and it was such a genius idea. And so I had high expectations for that, and that scene in the movie, it lived up. Now, there was a different iteration of it. From what I remember, the movie, from the stories I've read about Ender's Game, is that when they came out of the tunnel, and there was a set of groups that were above their portal, that they were individually had their own shield. So the team split up in half. So half of them were shields, half of them were fighting. And so that's what I depicted of what was going to happen, but instead it was just one single one. And so that was okay, because it was still good, and the final climax was it matched my expectations. It didn't exceed it, but it matched it, and I was satisfied. So I did enjoy that. That was good.
Cool. All right, yeah. So overall, good.
All right, now we're into our next segment, which is Pick or Poison, and it goes down to 4 choices: whether you'd never watch this again, you'd wait for a streaming service, and then you'd watch it like maybe on your downtime, or rent it, maybe spend a couple of bucks to watch the movie yourself, or just straight up purchase it yourself. I'll go first with that. I'd say I would wait and just like a streaming service, because it's a good enough movie to where it's a good movie to like pass the time. And I would enjoy the story. Now, would I talk about it to other people and quote about it and see how crazy and awesome it is? No. But I'd enjoy it watching it as just a movie. It's solid enough of a movie that I would do that.
All right. Well, my Pick My Poison right now, I would rent it. Like, I would be willing to spend a couple bucks to watch the movie, because I've been given like the very end. And so I personally love like the battle school, reading the books. Yeah. So I would love to see that like in a movie. So I would definitely rent this.
My Pick My Poison, because of my love for the Ender's Game story and Ender, I would buy the movie just because like I really love the story. So I think it really increases my appreciation of the movie because of my love of the book. If it was just like a straight up movie and I didn't have the love for the book, it'd probably be somewhere in between a streaming service and a rent. Like most of the time, if I was just like scrolling through something and on a streaming service, it's like, oh, Ender's Game. Oh yeah, I like that. Like I'll rewatch it. Like if I wasn't like I was just trying to get something to watch. Like I wasn't searching for something. But maybe every once in a while I'd be in a mood where I'd be willing to pay a few bucks for it. But that'd be like far in between. So somewhere in between the two for me, between stream and rent. So yeah. So much better than I thought I was going to rate it originally going into this. Yeah. Next segment, just moving right along, is binge points, which is just Easter eggs and details about the movie. Honestly, most of them are from the book, and this isn't a podcast about the book. This is a podcast about the movie. As far as binge points in the movie, nah. None. They're all about it's all about the book. Like
it references the book heavily, and it's
in like a good way, like,
Yeah.
and in a way where it doesn't bog it down. Like it just talks about the Ansible, but it just like chucks it out there and leaves it to be. And like, if you know what it is, you know what it is. It chucks
don't,
out,
you don't.
yeah, it chucks out the Hive Queen. And if you understand it, you understand all the details. If you don't, it's like, okay, that's the Hive Queen. It like it's Speaker for the Dead, that's referenced. But okay, this is actually one that I think I was really, really impressed with it that I want to point out. Not so much in Ender's Game, but in the later books, as Ender grows to have a relationship with a Hive Queen, a Formic. He describes her as like incredibly scary and almost creepy, but at the same time like beautiful. And he like sees her as beautiful and loves her, but not in a romantic way, but often describes her beauty. And in this movie, I feel like they did a really good job at making him super creepy and scary, but at the same time, I could understand the level of beauty that someone would see in them. And like, I was like, I don't know if they did that intentionally. They really got further into the series and understood how much of a relationship Ender would have with a Formic Hive Queen, but I thought they did a good job at that, and I was actually really, really impressed with the visual effects team there. Other than that, I don't really have any.
Yeah, I can't think of anything. I mean,
Dude, you 15 minutes, you don't have any?
Come on, dude.
Disappointed.
Come on, man.
there was a list of in the battle school. There was a list of like every team, and I wanted to pause it and look at each team because I remember that from the book, but that's the reference for the book, not the movie necessarily. So I'm gonna get that as my reference.
Oh,
It was just really cool for that.
there was a few. I looked at my notes. So the first one that I really liked is when Ender, as a launchy, goes into the battle room for the first time with 0 Gs. There is absolutely no score. It's just like echoey, him and Major Graf, which is Harrison Ford, talking until he pushes off and he's floating through zero gravity. And then the score picks up, and I was like, whoa, like that was really, I just thought it was well done. The other thing that actually, two other things is one, when everybody finally leaves Bernard's table and goes to Ender's table, the look on Bernard's face, like really, that's what got my mindset into like, these are kids. Like this is just a kid who his whole life has been told it's a game and he has to win. And like, he just lost in a way he can understand. And he lost all his friends. And like, it was really good child acting. That one moment, I was like, wow, good job. The other one that I was constantly amazed at the whole movie is a huge part of the book and the Ender's Game universe in general is the orientation of gravity and the ability to reorient yourself and how the enemy's gate can be down.
Yeah, I like that.
And like the way they visually portrayed that constantly throughout the film, I was this is like, if you knew to look for that, it was just so well done. And even in some ways, like you would be disoriented in the way they moved the cameras in and out of entering and exiting gravity. And I just thought it was well done. There's tons of other details that I'm thinking of now, but we don't have time to go into them. But
Well, there you go.
yeah. So no other bench points? Next segment?
Yeah, next segment.
Cool. That's least and likes, which is our least favorite scene and our most favorite scene. Kelton, you want to go first? Do you have it?
Yeah, my favorite scene was like the final battle.
And your least favorite scene?
And my least and my least favorite scene was probably just actually right after when Ender's talking to the general, because I have a hard time watching like kids display emotion, which I actually think he did a good job. But everyone else, like, I just wasn't sold. I could just be like an overcritic right here. But
Oh, I agree. Like Asa Butterfield, who plays Ender, and then Haley Steinfeld, they're like the only good ones. And then that one moment from Bernard, everybody else is like, you're a kid. Like you don't know how to.
yeah, it's hard, and that could be me being like closed-minded, but it's just hard for me to watch children act because it's difficult. And there have been times when I have been like, oh, okay, that was really good, but the rest I was just like, I wasn't sold. I was like, oh, okay. I mean, like you feel like they're just a kid and they don't.
Yeah.
There was a point where it was so serious throughout the movie, and the majority of them they were kid actors, and so at the point where I had to tell myself, okay, I can't look at them as kids anymore. They have to be adults, and so their actions didn't seem so like, not necessarily uncanny valley, but like they're so serious that they're trying to be so emotional that they don't feel
Yeah,
emotional
like
at all.
you have to tell yourself that these are kids who have been trained to be adults. Like that's the story. And then you have a kid who is acting to be a kid who's been trained as an adult. And like if you can get in the right mindset, it like the emotion, especially from Asa Butterfield, is really, really good throughout the whole movie. But the first time I watched it, especially that ending scene where he's talking to Graf and he's like, I just killed an entire species. Like, it just didn't hit. I was like, good job for the movie to try and go there, but like, you just missed. Like, strike three, you're out. Like, that just did not connect whatsoever.
Because you could say that he was just crying and yelling.
Yeah, but this time it really, like, having my mind in the right mindset, it connected better. So, yeah, Cade, what's your least favorite?
My least favorite is that there was no humor. There's no point where you could laugh and like, okay, take a step back and breathe. Okay, funny, and then jump back into it. But it was like 2 hours of seriousness. But then there was point like a lighthearted moment where like they laugh or smile. But then I was like, I want something to be like something to roast somebody, because there was a point. Okay, never mind. There was one scene that was funny where they were. The kid that threw up on the ship, they made fun of him, and then Ender roasted the other guy. That was the only scene, and so I wanted some sort of humor of some sort, and I felt like that would make the movie better overall in a lot of different places.
You get like one, maybe two hits from Harrison Ford, and then other than that, it's just like, and even those are kind of shallow. Other than that, it's just like full steam ahead, which is fitting for the type of story it's telling, but like at the same time, it's kind of exhausting almost.
Yeah, it's almost exhausting. You're kind of like, I want it to end.
Yeah, I agree. You got to again, you got to be in the right mindset to watch this movie. Like, this isn't Edge of Tomorrow where Transformers you just throw in and kick back and relax. Like, you got to be in the mindset to watch a heavy movie that is about a child being tricked to commit genocide. Like, that's not Saturday morning cartoon stuff. That's
No.
So yeah. I think that is one of its flaws, is like, but it's also one of its strengths. It's a flaw in some moments and a strength in another, I would say, but maybe that's just me defending a movie I really like. My least favorite scene is the scene with him and Valentine on the beach. It just, no matter how many times I watch it, it just doesn't work.
That was a weird scene. We can just ignore that.
Can we just like in the book, it's really good and it really is valuable to Ender's character, and this one it just doesn't work. So I think it's the character of Val and the dialogue that was written. Or the actor. I just don't like it. Don't eat it. So,
okay.
Do you have a favorite?
I do have a favorite, and it's the point where it's a part of a scene. So the point where they abandon. I forgot that he abandons the transports. So he chooses to without him realizing, letting thousands of people die because he needed to beat this species, and then he has them do a corkscrew of some sort with kind of like a rifle. So they can shoot, and I thought that was really cool. That whole, you can pause that and that scene right there. Yeah. That was dope. That was my favorite.
My favorite is either that one. I have three they're all kind of equal. Is that one or the scene where Ender pushes off with Petra and he grabs the two guns and he's spinning in a circle and he's just like, pew, 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 pew. Yeah, and then General Graf, Harrison Ford, smiles. I'm like, I got you, dude. I'm feeling the same thing. Or the scene where he's with his team and puts a barrier around a lie and goes through the gate. Right before that, when they push Bean out and he swings on the rope. I don't know, the music in that scene I just love. And it really cool. It makes the simple act of swinging on a rope through zero gravity that much cooler. So, that's my favorite. Probably that one right there.
My favorite scene was just like what Kate said. Just the final battle was just awesome to see all the CGI come together for that. So, I like it. Okay. All right, and that leads us to our final segment, which will be very quick. Follow in. What do you guys think?
Yeah, so means about this. Obviously, the book's a million times better when it comes to this. Head and shoulders above it. In a very powerful way, the book does, especially the other books. But
okay, so there was a point where Ender beat up that bully, and it was in the beginning, and that was a foreshadowing that he beat him up and kicked him while he was down, because I'd win all other, fights, every fight, so that he wouldn't bother me anymore. And then when they went and he destroyed an entire species, blew up their freaking planet, decimated them. My first thought was you can never justify genocide.
No,
and I think that's what they did really well in portraying in this movie, is that you cannot justify genocide, and that there is humanity. There's quote unquote humanity in every species, which is scientific, fictional philosophy. You could say. But yeah, you can't. It's just everybody has humanity.
One thing that I noticed about the story in watching the movie this time is it talks a lot about how Ender, as the third, they needed him to have like the strategic mind of Peter and the brutality of Peter to fight and win, but the empathy of his sister Valentine to understand and think like a Formic so he could actually win. And the only time they ever talked about needing the empathy was so that he could think like a Formic only to win, which is true. Like, that's a true thing in strategy. But like, I think what made Ender really such a perfect combination of a destructive, evil Peter and an incredibly compassionate and empathetic Valentine is that before confrontation, he always tried to diffuse it with talking. Every single time. With Bonzo, or Bonzo, however you say it, and the bully. I forget the bully's name. Both times, he first tried to de-escalate by talking about it. And like, I feel like that's a much greater strength of empathy and compassion, is that is your first attempt. And then you have the strength to brutally destroy them so they never hurt you again if needs be. But, and the other thing that I wish the movie did a better job at, particularly in this way, is that like the reason Ender blows up the planet in the book is because he was sick and tired of the training. He was exhausted and he wanted to go home. He thought it was a game, and he thought that blowing up the planet was a cheat move that they'd send him home because he cheated. And he's like, I'm going to cheat because I want to go home. It's not because he wanted to win, he wanted to go home. He was done. And like, that doesn't quite hit the same way in the movie. And it's like, the poor kid, like, you just want to go home. You're sick of just being controlled by these adults and wasted to your bitter ends, and you just want to go home. And then you find out that you just killed an entire species. Like, well, you're going to wear that for the rest of your life. But
yeah, I mean,
especially when you have the personality to always try and de-escalate it in communication first, which you can tell Ender was thinking about. He valued it, and he was just never given the chance because he was tricked.
And it was kind of, it hid the antagonist, who truly was the antagonist, and it was Garf, Harrison Ford. It was him. He was the bad guy because he said, like, I just killed an entire species, and he's like, it doesn't matter. It's like, we won. It's like, that's all you cared about. You're so terrified of what happened before that you just want to completely decimate, zero mercy, none, still it's gone. So, and it backfired, honestly, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. So, good movie.
Yeah.
To kind of wrap up, it's a good movie that, in the right mindset, you can really enjoy, especially if you're a fan of the series and the book. And as a lover of sci-fi, particularly this type of sci-fi, even though I've seen it multiple times before, I was reminded by how much I actually really enjoy it, which my expectations were honestly low. And like, I wouldn't say they were exceeded, but I was pleasantly surprised about how it lived up to them in a positive way. So
There you go.
that's what I would say.
So that's good.
But yeah, thanks for everybody for listening to the podcast. Sorry, this was a short one. We got to let Kate get out of here. Next week, super quick announcement. We are starting back with the MCU Phase 3. We're going to binge through that, finish it up, starting with Captain America Civil War, which we're pretty excited for. Phase 3 has a lot of great movies in it.
Really good.
I'm excited to get to. And after that, we were just talking about earlier about our plans after the MCU, and we're pretty excited, which we forgot to announce, so I guess I'll just edit it and put it in the announcements. In our preparation for what's coming after the MCU, if you guys could tweet at us at Binge Basement, tweet at us your top 10 favorite movies. It could just be like a screenshot of your letterbox. If you're lazy, just do your favorites. But come on, make a top 10 list and send it to us.
Send it, guys.
Tweet at us. We would love that. At Binge Basement on Twitter, your top 10 in Letterboxd. We'd love that. Appreciate it. See you guys next week. Ciao, ciao.
Dogs.